Jyotsna Srikanth, welcome to Beyond Stage Fright. Now, you're a violinist who is steeped in the Carnatic music traditions of southern India, but you also played jazz, Western classical music, Irish folk music, flamenco, blues, pop, and beatbox. You've played for more than 200 Bollywood films. You play in concert halls all around the world, the BBC Proms, and also most recently, you played for the Indian Prime Minister in Wembley in front of an audience of 60,000 people. And if that wasn't enough, you're also a qualified pathologist. The first thing I'd like to ask you is how you were trained in southern India in the musical traditions, the Carnatic musical traditions. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
In my younger days, it used to be really strict learning, strict practice with a lot of discipline, and now I understand the value of it. But of course, I had the passion even then, and I never opposed. And my mother is mainly responsible to what I am today, and of course my husband later, who has been supporting me all through my journey. But in the beginning years, yes, it used to be daily 2 hours of practice during school time, and during holidays it used to be 8-10 hours of practice with lots of attractions in between. So my mother used to say, you are going to memorize these 2 compositions, and I'm going to get you something nice to eat from the bakery which was next door, and such nice smell used to come by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So some sort of attractions like that for me to sit and practice. But later I did not need it. I was doing for myself and not for anyone else. Yes, those strict regimes helped.
What kind of impact did that have in terms of your performing? Did it help you to have that amount of practice when you were very young?
Of course. See, the more you practice, you become more close with your instrument, and which means that you are more confident with your instrument. And that, of course, shows off when you go to the stage. See, the main problem with lack of confidence on stage, I would say, is lack of practice. If you have enough practice, that negativity is covered. You are confident, you perform.
Now, you've also studied Western classical violin. Did you notice any differences between the way that you were taught in Indian classical violin and the way you studied in Western classical violin?
Yes, it was huge difference. When I started learning Western classical music in Bangalore, there weren't many teachers, and I had to travel a long distance to go and learn. My teacher used to go on for 2 hours, 3 hours in a lesson, and then for a 1 hour lesson, at 50 minutes the alarm used to begin. Okay, now we have 8 minutes more, we have 5 minutes more. Yeah, I do understand that they're very particular about it. First of all, I used to feel that. And then, of course, the system is totally different, and it's all notated. Everything is notated, even the up bow, down bow, everything. It's very, very strict. In Indian classical music, what happens, in South Indian classical music in particular, it's a good combination of both compositions and improvisations. So when you say improvisations, lots of creativity goes into it. When there is creativity, that the time binding of time is not there. So when my teacher used to start improvising or teaching creativity, it used to go for hours. But now, of course, even in Carnatic classical music, when we teach here, we stick on to times. And then when it comes to teaching compositions, it's not as strict as in Western classical system. We do teach line by line, but it's not that the bowings are marked or this has to come exactly the same. So the student has a little bit of freedom to interpret the phrases in a different way or in a more improvised way.
Is there any difference between playing Indian classical music and all the other fusion music that you play, like flamenco, jazz, blues, Irish folk music?
Yeah, there is a lot of difference. First of all, when I'm on stage on a Indian classical music platform, I sit down, cross-legged, squat down, and I'm going to hold the violin between my collarbone and ankle. I'm playing. This is to facilitate the easy playing of the gliss notes, which we call as gamakas. Gamakas are the trump card of Indian classical music. So the position is different, the reach is different. And when I'm going to collaborate with musicians of different genres, normally I hold my violin in the Western position, and then when the violin fingerboard rises, so the reach is different and the tuning is different. Indian classical violin is tuned to fifths, and then here the Western tuning is different. Western violin is EADG. So I have to tune my brain, saying that the tuning is different. So that is there. The position is different, the tuning is different, and then of course the music is of course different. I need to adapt when I collaborate. I can't play in the way I'm going to play the traditional Indian classical music, South Indian classical music. No, not at all. I need to customize.
Do you feel that improvising has a big impact on how nervous you might be?
Yes, maybe. When you are conditioned to too many things, so this has to be like that, that has to be like that, I think then the fear starts. And when you are improvising, example, before I go to the stage, I don't know what I'm going to improvise, right? I'm not saying there's uncertainty, but of course, it's a combination of both compositions and improvisations. And say it's both 50-50%. So the conditioning is for 50%, and other 50% is free. It depends on my mood there, when I see the audience, the ambience. It depends on that. I can't predict. So I'm fearless. Whatever comes to my head at that time, I'm going to perform.
So when you were younger, did you have any performance anxiety at all?
I gave my first proper professional performance at the age of 9. I did not have any stage fear. Maybe exposing the children early to music and then exposing them to stage cuts off this stage fear. Probably that helps. I can't say that is in all the cases, but in my case that did help, and I wasn't scared at all.
And as you got older and as it became possibly more important, did you find that you had any form of nerves?
No, definitely I was not nervous, but I became more conscious of what I was presenting and how I was presenting and the perfection levels. Of course, but that doesn't mean that I had fear. But then I used to see that everything is in place and my presentation will be good. Maybe I was more prepared, and maybe I was becoming more picky on some things, that this should be like this, that should be like this, but that was not fear. That was probably going more into perfection.
So your experience of being on the stage now, can you give me a sense of what that is? Would you say that it's heightened adrenaline and excitement?
Yes, it is excitement. I like to go on stage and perform. My forte, my strength is live performance. More the people I see, more inspired I get.
So that performance in front of 60,000 people was more exciting than maybe a small audience?
It's not necessary always. I can't always get 60,000 people. But sometimes, even a small chamber concert, when the audience interact well, when they reciprocate, when they say that whatever I'm performing is good and it reaches them, when they express that, I have the same excitement as I'm performing in front of 60,000 people or even 10 people. It's the audience, the quality of the audience that really makes a difference, I think.
So what for you is the difference between playing for a recording in the recording studio, for example, and playing live music?
Recording studio, I need to derive my own inspiration. It's really difficult to get that inspiration, but I know it's getting recorded, it's going to be a permanent record. I can't afford to make any mistakes or present it badly. All that is there. The pressure is a little bit more, I feel, in recordings. In live performance, live is live. Whatever is played is played. I can't go back. I can't rewind back and okay, I'm going to play again. That's not going to happen. Of course, the pressure of delivery is always there. It depends on what I'm playing, what kind of piece it is. All that is there. But yeah, recording maybe is more pressure, I feel.
How do you prepare for a performance?
When it comes to traditional South Indian classical music, Sometimes I just go on stage. I don't get prepared. I don't know what I'm going to play, and I'm going to decide once looking at the audience. That really matters. If it's for a Indian community, say, I'm going to sometimes play more of compositions. So 75% might be compositions for certain communities. For certain communities, it may be the other way around. Maybe I go into more detail of improvisation, more technicalities. Sometimes it might be too technical if the audience really know what I am performing. So it depends. For a Western audience, maybe I try to give them a balanced concert which has both compositions, and I explain what I am playing and what the composition means suggests, and then I go into improvisation, and I also try to present the different ragas and different scales, pentatonic scales, and some scales which are not common to the Western ears, so that the audience will get something new rather than me also playing the major scale and the minor scale. We have so many scales, so many ragas. Maybe I am going to present a diverse range of ragas. It definitely makes a difference. I do prepare, but then most of it happens on stage. But if it's contemporary Indian music, the Bangalore Dreams, which I present, I do prepare. I have a set list. We do rehearse. It's all pakka written down, and then of course again the improvisation part is, it just happens on stage, but then the endings is prepared. We do sit and rehearse. It depends as to what I'm playing, and if it's a collaboration, say now I collaborate with the Swedish folk musicians. It's a wonderful project called Nordic Raga. There we do sit and rehearse. Everything is rehearsed, and then of course with orchestra, every note is rehearsed. So it depends on what I'm performing.
How do you keep your focus on stage?
Focus automatically comes in unless someone is speaking loudly and disturbing me. And that rarely happens. Focus automatically comes. Once I go onto the stage, and if it's a traditional concert, my drone, the tambura is on, the focus is there. You are doing your duty there.
And have you ever had any performing disasters, or what you might consider to be performing disasters on stage?
Yes, breakage of string. That has happened. Something important, grippingly tight. I'm playing, and the tuning goes down. Something happens to my pegs, especially in this extreme weather. So I'm sometimes in India, 40 degrees place, and suddenly I go to Sweden, which is a -5 or -10. In those conditions, I try to maintain the temperature of the violin. I take care of the violin. But having said all that, you can't say what will happen. This has happened for me, and while playing, the pegs have loosened up and it has gone down. That I would consider as a disaster. But then, yeah, you take it in a good sense and apologize, and then retune it and again start. I know it's not as good as having a proper flow, but you can't help.
How do you manage the logistics of an international performing life? I mean, there's touring, there are different concerts, as you said, the difference between temperatures in different countries. How do you manage all the different things that come with a performing life?
It is difficult, but with discipline it can be done. First of all, my main concern are my children. I have to, and my family, and I have to organize everything for them. If there are tuitions, if they have to go to their music lessons, all the swimming stuff, everything needs to be organized. And I normally write down everything. This has to be done at this time. Pick drops. That portion is very, very important for me. And then of course travel, that has to be done well ahead of time. Travels, then seeing if the passports expire, dates, visas, everything is fine, and then packing things. Nowadays, I'm extra careful. If I have to travel somewhere, I start packing almost a week before, so that I'm not going to forget anything. So all that, and then end to end, I need to plan, and then once I go there, the logistics, everything I plan. It's with diligence and discipline it can be achieved.
It sounds as if discipline is a very important part of your performing life, in terms of both the practicing and also what makes it more possible to go on stage and really enjoy it. Would you say that's the case?
Absolutely. discipline and diligence is really, really important. I can't randomly just say, okay, I'm going on tour now. I have to leave the house in half an hour. I'm going to pack now, and I'm going to arrange things. No, you can probably do once or twice when some emergency performances come or something like that, but not always.
What are the biggest stresses that you have to deal with in your performing life?
See, when it comes to Indian classical music, since I'm staying here in UK, when I get artists from India to accompany me, or even in my contemporary Indian music shows, Bangalore Dream, when I get artists from India, their travel and visas is a little bit stressful. The work permit visas, all that needs to come on time. They need to apply to visas on time. When it comes to me, I'm very, very diligent. For me, the biggest stress in making others do things. That's where the stress comes. And what happens is, yeah, I do send the papers, everything well in advance, but people there are busy and they won't be able to go to visas on time. And sometimes I have had I had situations where I had to cancel performances. Last year I had to cancel a concert in Canada because the artist back in India did not have time to go for visa. But it's that is a big stress for me, because I try to organize so many things, try to be very, very disciplined, and on my part everything is correct. But the other person takes it so lightly, and when they fail, that's when the stress happens to me.
It's very unusual for Western classical musicians to have another profession that they do aside from playing music. How's that been for you, being a qualified pathologist as well as an international performing musician?
Yeah, I used to be a practicing medical doctor until 2007. Then later I realized that I can't have my two legs in two different boats. And then I chose music, which was always drawing me. In England, I don't know, somehow it works out. And most of the concerts happen during the weekends. Not that weekdays you don't have concerts. But lots of musicians do manage having other professions also. But maybe the touring and the traveling part will be lesser. That's always there. But when I came to this country, I saw that I have to manage everything, the family and with kids. I can't have family plus music and medicine. One I have to knock off. So I decided to knock off medicine because I could not have survived without music.
Is there any particular advice you'd give to young up and coming musicians?
Of course, they have to be perfect before they go to stage. Practice, practice, practice. That's always there. And for students who are nervous, who are scared to go to the stage, this has happened to lots of my students. What I would say is start meditating. Okay, daily have 10 minutes of meditation. One student came to me and said, "Teacher, I try to meditate and I fall asleep at the time." Oh, that's fine. Okay, in the initial stages, you feel that. You concentrate on one thing. Okay, if you believe in God, whichever God, think of that God. Okay, I don't believe in God. I want to think of my instrument. Okay, fine. Have the instrument in front of you. Close your eyes. Start meditating. And before the concert, if you are really scared, say half an hour before the concert, just close your mind and meditate. That brings in lots of calmness within you, and the performance will be different. Many I have heard, oh, I start sweating. When you start sweating, you can't play the instrument. All this. I recently had a student also who says, whenever I put my hands on the violin, I'll start sweating. So I asked her to put her hands into warm water daily morning, and so many things like this, exercises. And now she says it really helps.
So, what does it feel like to you when everything's really working well on stage?
I'm just happy, and I can't stop playing.
Jyotsna Srikanth, thank you so much for talking to me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.